And so when I got to college, I started out as an engineering major.
In Rhonda.
Because I wanted to build schools.
Okay.
I wanted,
okay.
but I kept thinking the way for me to have impact
is for you to actually create the schools.
To build the schools.
Okay.
And in my 20s, I began to understand that it's not about the architecture and the structure. It's about the people and the policies and the processes.
Hey there. So happy for you all to join us today. I am Kyla, but you can call me Kai because we are friends. And I am having the privilege and the honor to interview one of my dearest friends, my sister from another mister, Dr. Rhonda Tsoi-A-Fatt. Hey, friend.
Hey, girl.
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I am at peace.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's the best place to be.
Yes.
You ready for this, friend?
As ready as I'm gonna be.
Yes, yes, I think you are ready. I'm excited. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I am happy for you. And
Thank you.
This is a part of your journey.
It is.
And I'm excited that you are at a place where you are ready to share that and tell your story in a way that represents exactly who you are.
Yeah. You know, it's been a path to get here.
Yeah,
It's been a path to get here, but I'm excited to just share a little bit of who I am as a woman and what my journey and my trajectory has been and how it brings me to this space that I'm in now. Yeah. And I'm excited that we get to do it here at Ayoku.
Yes. I love Ayoku. Before we jump in, I would love for our viewers to know, what is Ayoku? What does that word mean? What brought you here? What drew you to this land, these 54 acres of land?
Yeah. So Ayoku is a Yoruba word that means joy remains.
Love that.
And for all of my career, I've done work in racial justice and social justice and have always known that there is an exhaustion that people that do the work of just trying to make our nation a place that is better, a place that is more affirming and loving and caring of everyone. There is a heavy burden that you carry when you do that work.
I can imagine.
And I wanted to create a safe place for people to come and rest and get reinvigorated as they continue to do the important work of just making this nation a better place. And so we purchased this land here to build a healing retreat center that enabled people not just to come away and have a spa-like experience, but to actually learn, what does it mean to integrate health, healthy practices, solid well-being into their day-to-day life and practice.
Okay.
How do we teach that to people? How do we give them the tools to do that for themselves well, to be more holistic and well-rounded in the way they live their lives? And so we are going to be building out so many different services here and so many different types of activities. And just being on the grounds for me is peaceful and calming and returns me to purpose. So.
There is something about driving up here. I thought about that this morning when I drove in, and I said, there's something beautiful about this space. Like, it just, you drive in and you know that you're walking into something different. What you're about to experience is something different. So I'm just excited to be here in the healing house on these grounds.
Yes.
And I'm excited for us to continue the conversation. I know you as a friend. I know you as a sister. And I would love for us to talk about who you are as the woman. Who is Rhonda? If you were to define her, right, from a third person perspective, right? Who is she?
You know, I am rediscovering myself
yes, girl.
in this season, you know, and it's odd to say that, you know, in my early 50s now, and still figuring out, like, who am I? You know, I think a lot of times we attribute titles to ourselves. You know, I'm a mom, I'm somebody's partner, I'm somebody's wife, etc. You know, I'm a social justice advocate or all of that. But
those are all titles.
They're titles. And beyond those titles, who am I, right? And I am really in this place of peeling back those titles and thinking about what brings me joy, what makes me smile, what makes my life feel balanced now in new ways. And so, and what makes me tick, right?
Yes.
And so learning those things again for myself, because we get so caught up in the day-to-day roles that we have to play in this life. But who am I at my core? And so just the things that I enjoy, you know, I enjoy music. I enjoy solitude and quiet. You know, I enjoy long walks. You know, those are all things that stir my spirit and my purpose. But I also know that I'm just a fierce and bold and loving and caring woman
you are.
Who loves people and particularly loves our children. And has always, my life's purpose has always been to do things that ensure that our children are well and that they're thriving. And that shows up in different ways throughout my life course and my career. But at my core, that's why I was put here on this earth. And that is the work that I have done. And so I feel like I'm living my purpose.
I think you are. I think it's amazing that what you're saying is you are rediscovering yourself in your 50s. And I think to come to that place and think that for someone who's not there, right? We think that you have to have it all together. You think that you have to figure it out in your 20s. If you don't know that by then, oh my gosh, you know, you don't know it in your 30s. But there is something comforting in knowing that here's this woman who is a rock star, who's a boss, who's all of these different things, because yes, you are a boss, who are all of these different things. And yet here she is saying, I am having a blast rediscovering who I am. And I think that that's like an open invitation for you to saying, hey, I knew who I was in these different decades, right? But I'm still figuring that out. And I'm enjoying that part of my journey too.
Yes. And we are different at different phases of our life. We're supposed to be continually evolving and growing and experiences in life transform us, right? If you're still the person in your 50s that you were in your 20s, you're doing something wrong.
Baby, listen, okay? You
should not be. And so, you know, just learning what does it mean, you know, to be in this life phase and to be in this body, right? You know, you're going through physiological changes, mental changes, the world is shifting around you. And so how do you continuously find the still time to focus on tapping into making sure you know who you are as a person, as a woman is important. We get caught up in the I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm taking care of kids, I'm running here and running there. And we don't spend enough time just grounding ourselves in who am I? What do I love? What do I enjoy? What stirs my purpose? What makes me feel whole? And I'm sitting in this phase now of stillness where I am listening to myself and figuring that out.
I love that. I love that you are giving yourself the space to be still, first and foremost, and not tasking yourself, right? And it sounds like you've gotten to a place where you've detached the value of performing with the value of stillness. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so that has taken some time to get to, right? Wisdom on the journey. And you and I had a conversation outside of this, and we talked about how amazing God is in your life and how he shows up all the time. But particularly, he shows up at the start for you of each decade of your life. Tell us a little bit about that. Like when you say he shows up at the top of each one, and we'll break that down, you know, as we continue to talk. But what does that look like from a bird's eye view?
Yeah. So when I look back over my life, you know, I feel like we can sing that song. When I look back over my life. But when I look back, I notice that at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50, there were major shifts happening in my life. And I've learned to be quiet and pay attention to what I'm being called differently to do at the top of every decade.
That's
Major life shifts have happened for me at each of those years. And I really have learned to, every year you sit and you journal and you think about, your birthday and all of that. I do that, but at the top of each decade, as I prepare to move into a new one, I've learned that I need to sit with God and really think through and listen. What is this new decade calling me to? And he's always revealed something very new and very different for me.
Yeah. I love the fact that you are even explaining that there's a different calling at the top of each decade. Like, sometimes we are so attached to what we feel called to do that we will then take that particular calling and say, this is the calling for my entire life, right? But what if he's just calling you to that for right now, right? And there's no mistake in saying, well, God, are you calling me to do something different? You know what I mean? Because there's not a blueprint, so to speak. And so the idea that you give God a space and there's this fluidity, right, of this flowing, and he's doing these things at the top of each decade, and you are so open to receiving what it is that he's saying.
My purpose is in this world. I'm intended to do work for the benefit of Black children and families. Very clear about that. I'm very clear about the issues that I want to impact and all of that. But the way you're called to fulfill that shifts and changes over time, right? So when you think about somebody's career trajectory, for example, they may have worked in this job or that job, but all related to a particular purpose. And in the same way, I've experienced these shifts at the top of each decade where I was called to begin to do national service work, where I was called to begin to move into a space of entrepreneurship, where I've been called to think about the health and well-being of the people that do work for the benefit of children and families. All of those are different callings, but at the end of the day, my core purpose, why I exist in this world, why I am here on earth to benefit our children and their families, that remains the same.
And I think that knowing that and knowing the difference between the two will allow you to then kind of debunk when you can tell that is this attached to my purpose?
Right.
You then can kind of differentiate. Am I just moving to move, or is this God calling me? Is this aligning with what I am purposed in this earth to do, right? And I think that understanding that allows you to accept what the call is as long as it aligns with the purpose that God has given to you. So as we talk about him giving you these different calls in your life, at the 20s decade, what would you say he called you to do in that season? What is that called?
That really was a formative season, a season of conviction, where I had to really get grounded in what kind of person and woman and advocate was I going to be. How was I going to stand up? How was I going to show up for our people? And it's interesting because I've always known what my purpose was. I knew it at 11 and 12 and 13 years old. I was clear about what I wanted the impact that I wanted to have, And it started with me seeing injustice in my school system and seeing how different kids were treated differently, right? Seeing how there's a magnet program over here for the quote unquote smart kids, and then there's basic education over here for the kids that they haven't deemed worthy of these special programs. And all of that felt unjust to me. And so when I got to college, I started out as an engineering major.
In Rhonda?
Because I wanted to build schools.
Okay.
I wanted, but I kept thinking the way for me to have impact
was for you to actually create the schools.
To build the schools. And in my 20s, I began to understand that it's not about the architecture and the structure. It's about the people and the policies and the processes. And so I changed my major and began to study human services and social sciences instead. And then when I came out and I started my career, I had to figure out how do I want to show up as a professional?
Yeah.
Because people will ask you to make trade-offs all the time.
Yes.
People will ask you to sell your soul
Yes.
in this work and negotiate your way through things. And I was like, no, I want to be an unapologetic advocate for our kids. And so if that means that I have to push up against the folks that are sitting in positions of power, that's what I'm going to do.
People aren't brave enough to do that. You do know that, right?
I do. And something in me just said that I need to make a determination now in my 20s.
Who I'm going to be.
That is the kind of advocate that I'm going to be.
Yes.
That I'm going to put children and their families first.
Yes.
And if it means in my 20s went up against folk that I should have been scared to go up against, I'll never forget. I had a student, and I worked in a Boys and Girls Club. I had a student in my Boys and Girls Club who wanted to go to college, and his guidance counselor was telling him that the path to going to the Department of Labor and taking a trade should have been his path. And she was only saying that because of his economic circumstance.
So she has said instead of him going off to complete a degree, that he should have gotten a trade instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Girl, when I tell you I marched up in that lady's office, she had to have been 20 years older than me. I rolled up in her office and was like, so what you not gonna do? And I know that you got these Title I dollars over here to pay for him to apply for college and to pay for his SAT and to pay for his SAT prep. And this is what we're going to do.
And did she
And
do it?
I'm not going to come back up in here and have this conversation about another student.
Oh, don't make
Because I got all your kids in my program here at the Boys and Girls Club. And that was just the kind of leader that I had determined in my body that I wanted to be,
In your 20s.
In my 20s. There was another situation we had. I was working in the Department of Education, and there was this pregnancy prevention program in the state. And the Associate Secretary of Education came to me. Like, I am an associate in my 20s.
Okay.
The Associate Secretary comes to me and she says, I want you to go out and research what's going on with this program. Pull the data, have some interviews with the staff, have some interviews with the pregnant and parenting girls in the program, and come back to me with some recommendations.
Okay.
So I did that, and I came back with the recommendations that the Department of Education had been flawed in the way that they funded the program.
Okay.
And that if they changed it, that the program would be able to thrive, and that there's so much more that they'd be able to do. Well, the Associate Secretary didn't like my response. She wanted me to say, the program is failing, let's shut it down.
Oh.
But in my mind, the program wasn't failing. The program was doing as much as it could with the resources that it had.
Correct.
And that if we
Correct.
shifted the way we did our
Correct.
resources, it's a matter of the policies in the system. It wasn't a matter of what was going on in the day-to-day, because they were doing great, hard work with young women who needed that support. And the Associate Secretary said to me, we're going to walk into this meeting, and I want you to present this.
Wait, so she had you go do the research. You came back with your findings. You explained what your findings were, which was true, right? And she said, thank you, but we're going to say this.
Right. And when you come into the meeting, this is what I would like for you to present. And this is the rationale.
Okay.
And I immediately understood what was going on. Like, you send a young Black woman to research a program that serves Black girls. And so if we make the recommendation to shut it down, you can't cry racism because the person who came and did the research was this young Black woman.
Oh.
And I walked into that meeting and I presented my findings.
Oh,
Yeah.
you
And essentially shot my career in the pinky toe. I knew that would happen. And I knew that it meant, oh, well, you're not going to get promotions in here. You've blacklisted yourself. But I was committed to standing 10 toes down for these young women.
Yes.
And I know that if we shift our policies and our practices in systems, then our young people will thrive. It's not about them having to step up to do something. It's about us having to step up for them.
Correct.
And that was the kind of leader that I wanted to be in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I've always trusted that God would provide the next opportunity.
Yes, yes.
And I've always trusted that I'm not bound to this one particular job, this one particular salary. I'm bound to my people.
Come on, and my purpose. You
Yes.
understand? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And at the end of the day, if I'm fulfilling that, then the provision will always be there.
The provision and the protection.
Yes.
Right? Because
Yes.
you're not straying away from who God called you to be, from your purpose. And I think when you have a clarity on your purpose, a clarity of what you've heard him call you to do, it gives you this audacity.
Yes.
Right? You have this unction, because who gonna check me, boo?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, because this is bigger than you and your position and role. And in society will say, girl, you are crazy to do that.
Yeah.
And then you look back at society in your 20s and said, I may be crazy to you, but I'm called to him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that in your 20s you were standing 10 toes down with these people who other people would have been like, what is she doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
But to me, that's what continues to open those doors.
It does. And
right?
to your point, the protection was already there.
Come on.
So there was a Black woman in the department, Betty Richardson. I love her. She called me into her office one day and she said to me, there's nothing more for you here. Wow. But I'm going to show you what's going to come next.
Oof.
Yeah.
Come on,
and she
Betty.
wrote a recommendation for me to apply to the National Head Start program as a fellow. And it gives me chills when I think about it, because she wrote that recommendation for me.
Yeah.
And I got the fellowship. And that is what launched me out of a state level career into a national career. And it was like God was saying to me in this moment, you've shown me that you're going to stand 10 toes down
That's right.
for our young people.
That's right. That's
and
right.
because you've shown me that you are going to live with fidelity within your
That's
purpose,
right.
I'm going to elevate you and take you to a new height.
Yes.
And she was the one she said to me, I see what's happening in here. I see what you're trying to do and what you're trying to become, and I'm committed to helping you get there. And that launched my whole national career in public policy and working on issues of Black young people across the nation.
I think it's amazing. Sometimes we can get so hung up on the people, the negative things, and the people who are in our path that want to see us fail. That sometimes he sends that ram in the bush. Sometimes he sends that person that says, hey, no, but I see you.
Yeah.
I see what your value is. I see what you're worth. And you're actually bigger than what you even see.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and set you up to move forward, because your time here is up.
Yeah. And nobody can block your purpose.
Baby, say that one more time for the people.
Nobody can block your purpose.
Because if he calls
Once you learn that,
come on,
then you learn that you can stand tall in it, and you learn to just look your enemies and your naysayers in the eye and say, you know what, you don't even matter in this, because I know what I'm supposed to do, I know what I'm called to do, and I know what I'm gonna do.
That part.
Yeah.
And nothing you can say will stop me.
Yeah.
Nothing, because you're not bigger than my God, right? You're not bigger than that. So you are in your 20s with this, baby, with this audacity, okay? And he gives you Miss Betty, and Miss Betty says, I'm going to write you this recommendation, and you're bigger than this space, you know? And so you talked about that being your 20s.
Yeah.
Right? And the 20s, and I will say, you named it right, because conviction is real, okay? You were convicted about what you were called to do and your purpose, and nothing and no one was going to change that. And so as you entered your 30s, what was that season like? What would you say, if God were to call your 30s something, what is your 30s called?